Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today, everyone. I'm really excited because we are going to do an interview with Street Child United young leaders, led by Isabelle Westbury today. And we're going to introduce to you a new project which Fly on the Wall has been working on for the last, might have been 6 months now. It's a very exciting project for Street Child United. Basically, Samantha Richards and Street Child United approached us and said they've got this great idea for a book, and it really aligned with what we wanted to do because we do a lot of anthologies with a social conscience, and this is definitely a book which has that social message. So what it is it's called We Are All Somebody. The pre-orders are going to be open now by the time we upload this video onto our YouTube, and the book will come out in February. And it's an anthology of poetry, photography and art from street children all around the world. And what Street Child United does best is using the power of sport to empower young people, and specifically international sports events. And what they do with that is that they change negative perceptions and treatment of street-connected children everywhere. And while they're based in London, they have that international effect. So I'm delighted today that we have Isabelle Westbury with us, who is a former cricketer, so definitely knows how to use the power of sports and how important that can be. And now she is a Telegraph journalist and, of course, a Street Child United ambassador. Also with us today, we have Samantha Richards, who compiled the book, so the brainchild of the project. And we also have Leah, who is a Street Child young leader. So what I'd like to do now is pass over to Isabelle, who would like to ask our young leaders some questions to kick us off and get a feel for the book and what the project has been about so far.
Thanks very much, Isabelle. Well, it's incredible, really. I've been flicking through the book over the last few days. An amazing compilation, and I almost don't want to ask either Sam or Leah how old you are, because to have achieved what you have done so far is slightly absurd. But I will. I'm going to ask you both to, Sam, if you could go first. Could you introduce yourself? Tell us where you're currently based and what compelled you to get this book going?
Yeah, so I'm currently based in Wembley. I'm a UCFB student studying multimedia sports journalism. I've played football in the Street Child World Cup. My story with Street Child United almost started probably about almost 4 years ago now. I started at Arsenal in the community. I was studying, playing and coaching for them within their community. And they had a partnership with a charity called Centrepoint, which in my second year with them, they identified me as being vulnerable to almost going down the wrong paths. And at the time I was struggling a lot mentally. I just lost my cousin. He took his own life. And as the year almost went on, I lost my nan too. So I was struggling with almost how to deal with them emotions and how I could deal positively with them, really. So yeah, as the time went on, they introduced me to their girls only football sessions, which I loved, at the Black Prince Community Trust down in Vauxhall. So I got going with them. I really enjoyed my time there. And then as the year went on and January came, they told me that I'd been selected to be part of their Team England squad of 2018. So I was buzzing. I was well elated with that, because that meant that I could train at St George's Park. We had 2 training camps there, and it was an amazing facility, and that was something I'd never forget. And then I was chosen to represent England at the Street Child World Cup. Going into the tournament, I didn't really know what that meant, and how much that would change my life. At the airport, I met Leah, who has an incredible story. She's played at the previous World Cups, and she was there as a young leader.
And Sam, was that the Football World Cup? Is that right? Is that football first? Yeah.
Yes, that was the Football World Cup. So we played there, and I actually got to captain Team England in the 3rd place playoff, which was amazing. We played at the Locomotive Stadium, so I'll never forget that. It was incredible. And then I spoke to Dave, who was the media officer at the time. And I asked if I could do some work experience with him, because I started getting more interested in the media and behind the scenes of the media, really, and how my story and how I can impact the media to help provide a platform for these street connected children, that, as well as Street Child United did. So then the months went on after the World Cup, and I started doing training with them and helping them out within the media department, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But coming back from the tournament, I was struggling a lot with how to deal with all of the messages that I'd heard. During a Street Child World Cup, you have congress sessions where all of the teams will speak about the problems that they face in their countries and how they're stigmatised in their countries. And England was paired up with Team India, and by this point you were already their friends. Not only did you play on the pitch with them, but you also shared the same messages as them. And during the congress sessions, we actually found out that our friends now were actually living on the streets, and that after this tournament, they wouldn't be going back to living in beds like most of Team England were. They were going back and living back on the streets on cardboard boxes. And that really hit me hard. That hit a lot of Team England hard. Just because by this point we were already their friends. Like, you'll see on the TV adverts, children in poverty around the world, but until they're your friends and you actually see how much, how nice they are in person, and by actually being friends with them and knowing that they go back to that, it does really hit you hard and change your perspective, really. So after the tournament, I wrote a poem for Street Child United, almost to thank them of the amazing opportunity that I had, and it helped me a lot as well to deal with my emotions off of the back of the tournament. And then words started rhyming and things started to go, and then before I knew it, there was a poem in front of me that at the time I didn't know how powerful it could actually be and how powerful it could become. So I gave it to them, and they seemed to love it, and I was taken back by that because I didn't really think it was anything special, to be honest. I just wanted to give them something to say thanks and to almost inspire them to carry on impacting lives like mine. And then, yeah, I realised how powerful it was, and how powerful that this message is, and how powerful all of our messages are, and how incredible it could be to create a project that has all of these messages in, as well as artwork and photographs. And then one thing led to another. About a year passed now since the World Cup, and I started collecting poems to do with street connected children and people who face tough times around the world, really. And then in January, at the start of this year, so 2020, we got Lucas at Street Child United approached a number of publishers with the aim to hopefully secure a book deal for myself and the charity. And then Fly on the Wall Poetry Press came along and was like, hey, we love this idea, we'd love to chat. And then, yeah, we signed for the book deal in January and never looked back, really. The support I've had from young leaders like Leah, from children around the world and organisations, Street Child United and the presser, like, it's been incredible, and I never could have achieved this without all of them. So it's amazing, really. Yeah.
I can confirm it's no coincidence that Fly on the Wall or Lucas or anybody else thinks it's special, because it truly is, this book. I mean, your poem certainly, but among all the rest of them as well, the young leaders. Now, Leah, we heard there that you met Sam en route to the Football World Cup a few years back. Can you explain how you first got involved with Street Child United, and where you're based, and what your role is as a young leader? Many questions, I'm sorry.
I'm a lot more shy than Sam, by the way. So it was 2013, so a long time ago. And I was in care. So at this point, I think I was about 16, 17, so I was part of the Leaving Care team. And Street Child back then picked social services, basically, because the way they saw it was that we don't really have street children per se, as we don't really see children like living on the streets as we walk past them and stuff. So they believed that the closest thing would be children in care. And I didn't really play football. I was not really interested in football at all. I think my social worker kind of just knew I was in a bad place. Like, I was selling drugs, I was getting arrested a lot. So I think she kind of just did it just to do something, basically. And it was amazing because it did genuinely change my life. Now I'm based in Sheffield. I'm third year law student at the University of Sheffield. So
Wow.
And I'll probably, maybe grades depending, be doing a master's in international human rights, but we'll just see, because
you say that the Street Child United Football World Cup changed your life. How did it change your life?
Oh, I was a menace beforehand. Like, genuinely, I was horrible. I hate the person I was. And I think when I went to I went to the Brazil Rio 2014 Street Child World Cup, and then the 2016 Olympics in Rio. I think it was really shocking just to see and meet all these people with amazing stories. And I think I grew really, really close to Team Kenya, who's was with a charity called Glad's House. And I can't even, I don't know how Sam managed to put it into words, but like, when you meet these people and you hear their stories, and obviously there's a lot of like parallels to like being a child in care in the UK. It's not as extreme, I would say, in terms of like, we don't live on the streets, but the stigmatism, the way we feel. And I think I remember coming out of 2014, there was one thing that we kind of all shared, that we believe street children don't get, and it was something. So it was like love, like we said, that the thing that all of us have in common that we don't feel we have, and that was genuinely just love. And it was, everyone was crying. It was so embarrassing when I think back to it now, but it was like people live completely different lives, but we had this one, just really, it was ages ago as well now, but it was just a really moving experience. And so I stayed on.
You say you were very moved by it, changed your life. So can you tell us a little bit about your role then as a young leader now?
So after the first World Cup, then we had the second Olympics in Brazil. So I went back for that. But I think I was still a participant then in the 2016. And then after, so that was when we did the Rio resolution, which, sorry, I just got a notification, which was, the Rio resolution led to the UN's general comment, which obviously for me being a law student, like, that is like insane. Like, the UN released a general comment because of the work we'd done. Like, I still don't even understand how that happened. And then I got back and I did work experience with Street Child. And then after work experience was when I met the lovely Sam. So I went to Moscow with them, and a lot of the work we do, so I've been to a few schools to explain the work we do. It's a bit, where I do live in Sheffield, so I'm a bit far away. The work is a bit more spaced out than it would be if I was like back in London. But I think we just kind of, Sam, how would you describe like our jobs as like young leaders? Because it's like loads of little jobs, do you think?
Yeah, I would say that as young leaders, we almost share the message that Street Child United has, and like, we carry that message everywhere we go. I don't know about you, Leah, but anyone I meet who's interested in my story and where I've almost come from, Street Child United is almost the first thing I mention, just because they've made such a huge impact on my life, on Leah's life, and on so many people around the world. Like, I think I figured it out during compiling the book and writing my final poem, which is a thank you message again. They've worked with over 75 teams, and just to think that there's at least 10 people in a team, sometimes even more than that, that's almost 1,000 people. So we've also got a partnership with the International Schools Partnership, is called. So that's when me and Leah will go out to schools all around the world. So I went to Spain last year, and we go and present our stories and present our message to these schools all across the world. And it's really powerful to see their reaction, because a lot of the times they'll get guest speakers in their school or charity speakers in their school coming in, but you don't sit in lessons with them and you don't share your stories with them. Like, we're the people who have experienced these World Cups firsthand, and that's something really, really special, and it's something that I'll treasure for many, many years to come.
It's incredible to hear that when you meet people, one of the first things you talk about is your role with Street Child United, because you're both so accomplished already in so many different areas, and the fact that still has such an impact on your life is quite telling. I'm going to hand back now to Isabelle to talk more about the book, I think.
Yeah, I think this is quite a good time now to talk a little bit, Sam, about how you compiled it and what was really enjoyable about that, because you've talked a little bit about the idea and how that stemmed. And then I know that it was a really long process for you actually like collating all the artwork and the poetry and exactly what you wanted to say. And I'm sure there was so many things that you wanted to encompass in the book. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that process of being an editor and selecting which ones.
Yeah, so I've never done anything like this before. It was definitely a stressful period, but it was so enjoyable, and to see the final outcome now, and almost where we've handed all the poems and all the content over to you now, this is a time where I can sit back and truly appreciate how much is in the book, and how valued it is to so many people, and how valued, fingers crossed, it will be to so many people around the world. So I started off the back of 2018, started collecting poems in September that year, and then fast forward a year, that was when I started to almost organise them and think like, whoa, this is becoming something. And then almost 6 months after that, that's when we got in contact with the Fly on the Wall, and yeah, I would say like never looked back. And almost all of the messages in the book have an underlying tone of and meaning of hope, because we've all been through some sort of hardship in life, and for us it could be street connected, but by being hopeful and looking forward to the future, and by almost educating others on our experiences, that will provide social change. And by Street Child United using sport as a tool for social change, it really inspired me to do the same, and hopefully I'm doing the same. But yeah.
Brilliant. And I know that obviously there's so many different messages and voices in the book, but if you could be completely happy for someone to take away one message or one sort of theme from the book that kind of sums it up a little bit, what would you hope that they take away when they read it?
Yeah, so we almost call ourselves the Invisibles, because in our community we don't have a voice, and it's often that we're not heard or cared about. As Leah said, like, the thing we take off these tournaments is love and like appreciation of other participants and of the volunteers there. And I'd say that when you give those who are unheard an opportunity to speak and to be heard, and also a platform for that, for them to speak safely, then powerful things happen. And that's when you truly do provide change, and that's when you do help those who need it the most. The timing from when I started with Street Child United saved me a lot, and I could channel my energy into that, and it helped me overcome a lot of stuff, not just personal things, but also within my community. So for that, I'll be forever grateful. And for me to almost compile this book and collect things from all around the world, and to be able to give back to Street Child United, it will be really, really special and amazing, because then they can help more children like me and like Leah to have the opportunities that we did. But yeah.
Now, I just want to say thank you as well, Sam, because you're giving a platform to so many people just by having this idea and making it happen. And often people have an idea, but they don't necessarily take it to fruition in this way. So, yeah, I think that's quite powerful, just in itself, idea that you took forward and had the motivation and excitement to see through to the end. So I know that Isabelle has a question which sort of goes off the back of this about using voices and platforms.
Yeah, just off the back of that, taking a message from the book, I'm going to expand it a bit and run with it. And I might go to Leah first in your capacity as a law student and looking towards that area. The book urges change from our political leaders around the world. If you could meet with the Prime Minister tomorrow, say, if you're not too busy, what would you most want to discuss with him?
I'm not his biggest fan, so I'd probably...
All right, let's pretend that it's not that particular Prime Minister, but it is a Prime Minister, i.e. the leader of our country. And you don't want to knock them out, but you do want to encourage change. What would be the one thing that you'd want to change or urge them to get behind and support?
Well, I think just the so the UN's like right of the child. From what I've learned, which could be completely wrong, but is that even though we're a signatory to it, is none of it's actually implemented. So that's obviously the first stepping stone. And I think I was talking to one of my friends in the library the other day, and we were just talking about how children have such a lack of rights. Like we have this on a list, and this is your right, and this is your right, but when it comes to enforcing them and actually being able to use those rights, there's nothing in place. And I think so one of my friends was doing her dissertation on it, so but when I was reading through her research, it's actually crazy like how much our rights are not protected as children, even in a country like the UK where we're so developed and we're so forward. It's scary. So if even us, we can't be like a leading country for children's rights, when think about the countries that aren't as advanced as us, and that's what scared me the most, because I thought if we don't even have the protection here, countries, I don't know, like, so I think I would genuinely think talking about implementing how to protect children's rights in the first place would be the first step.
It almost sounds as though there's lots of nice statements, lots of nice words, but what we need and you need and want is for that to be put into practice. I mean, my mind immediately goes to someone like Marcus Rashford. Is he somebody who you look to as a role model in that respect? Yep,
definitely. He's amazing.
And Sam, if you could expand, is there anything that you'd expand on that? Is it the same kind of thing? If you had a meeting with a Prime Minister, what would you say?
Yeah, I'll definitely echo what Leah said there. There's a lot of we do this, we do that, but not a lot of action. And do you really do that? Do you really do that? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of talk, but not a lot of change. And I think they need to start listening to us young people. We're the next generation, and we are going to be the leaders of this country one day. No matter how many times they try to put it off, or that is the truth and that is the fact. And even with the education system and the opportunities that people get, like, sport can really be used as a tool for change and social change, especially like seeing the work that Street Child United does and the work that so many charities do around the world. They use sport as almost like a tool and like a rehabilitation for students, for people, and for participants to almost overcome the problems that they face. But yeah, I'd say that the government and all of the people who are higher than most people, that they really need to start listening and start acting upon what their promises are, in a sense. But even just from attending the Cricket World Cup, I was almost roped in as a participant last minute. I don't play cricket at all.
You would not have known that you don't play cricket from your performances, Sam. Honestly, that's an understatement.
If you could have seen the way I was bowled,
I saw the way you hit the ball, more to the point.
I wouldn't really, you know what, I wouldn't even say I actually hit the ball. I don't think I did at Lords. But yeah, like even at the cricket tournament, the support we had from UK organisations was incredible. Lords they were so forgiving, and like they gave us so much. But the governments there were any people of in terms of hierarchy within law, were they there? No. And I think that really speaks for itself. They're not willing to take the time to listen to those, and they only care about their circles, which is only going to lead them to one thing, really. But yeah, don't want to get into that too much because it might get a little heated.
No, well, it sounds all pretty clear to me. First of all, listen to those that have experience, that want to discuss this, and also, oh, Leah, I'm looking at your cat. This is brilliant. I hope she's part of the conversation. But listen, and if you say you do something, prove it, show some action. And I think it's very clear as far as I'm concerned. Thank you very much, both Sam, Leah, and Leah's cat with an impromptu appearance, which is wonderful. Isabelle, I'm going to hand back to you.
Thank you. It was great that we started touching on cricket, because I love how you saw Sam's performance as well. I don't know, can you call sport a performance? That's for my theatre hat on, but I'm going to call it performance. So I think it would be rude not to close by asking you, Isabelle, because obviously cricket has been such a defining moment of your life. But I wondered, with your work with Street Child United, obviously you see sport as something really important to street children around the globe. So what is that? Like, how can that change people's lives and young people?
Oh, I mean, I feel I could talk about this for hours and hours on end, but I think I'll start really with this summer in particular. Has been a really powerful one in terms of a reminder of the power and impact of sport, and whether it's been through the Black Lives Matter movement that spread throughout sport and across the globe, through taking the knee to boycotts, to very visible badges, or more simply the desire to keep sport going during a pandemic. I think we all realised how important sport was when we lost it, and whether it be mental health wise, for release, for just emotional, or even just the endorphins of going out and running about, and the power of that. If we didn't know it before, I think we do now. It's one of those, if you take sport for granted, you forget some of the things that it can do. But I think it's more than that as well. It has the power to change minds. You look back at some of the sort of major political movements of our time, whether it be the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, where a big part of that was the boycotts of cricket, of rugby tours there as well. I think about some of the powerful messages from the Black Panthers in the Olympics gone past, or even of Jesse Owens winning in front of Adolf Hitler in the 1938 Olympics. These are such strong tools, such strong messages through its association with major sporting events. But also, I think what was also really interesting with Street Child United is the emphasis as well on the assemblies that follow the sport, because it's a reminder that the athletes that we revere so much, these are people too, and they have brains and intentions. We talked about Marcus Rashford already. I mean, we could talk about Sam and Leah as well, and the coverage that they need to put through, use sport as a medium to raise their voices, to bring about legislative changes, to bring about funding. And then I think what was really interesting was hearing about Leah talk about the way that if it's so bad in the UK, what's it like in a country that perhaps hasn't got the resources or the infrastructure? How bad is it there as well? So I think in terms of messages, that's what sport can do. I think I've been always drawn to cricket because I think it's something that crosses genders in particular. So it's the kind of sport that both boys and girls, when they're in their early teens, they can go and play together. because there's not much of a physical difference. It's not a contact sport. You can also wear, the same clothes that you would go about in normal life. So, there might be more restrictive provisions for some girls and women in certain parts of the world. But cricket, you can still play wearing almost anything, as far as I'm concerned. And I think we saw that with the Cricket World Cup, the Street Child Cricket World Cup last year, with the mixed teams. I mean, I think some of the standout players of the tournament certainly were girls, and I think cricket is unique in that it can really bring about gender equality, which in many areas of the world, including this one, we've still got a very long way to go. And finally, I think it's also such a powerful mental health tool. I mean, we talk so often about the physical aspects of being a street child or in social care, but the mental side of that as well, the sort of unseen part of it, sport can be so important to change that. Leah talked about the fact that it changed her life going to the Street Child Football World Cup. I think that's almost more powerful than the physical sort of seen messages, is the mental health aspect as well. So now and again, I sort of, I think there have been times when I've been watching a cricket match that was grinding to a draw and it looked really boring, and I thought, what on earth am I doing here? But you forget that this is all part of a story. It's all part of a bigger picture, and sport can change the world. I truly believe that.
I see you've got your cricket bats behind you as well.
Just a reminder
Yeah, good
all the time.
backdrop. You've been able to take it out and about in lockdown, or not? You need some green.
Well, in the summer we did, when we had that little respite. I mean, they were pretty strict, first of all, in that lockdown. And then, I tell you what, it's a bit cold, dark and very wet at the moment for me to be finding any nets. But hopefully come next summer, there'll be a bit of cricket around.
Yes, I hope so. Thank you so much, everyone. I feel like we've got a really amazing flavour of what sport can do and how it can affect social change and what happens when young people use their voice. And I think it's been really uplifting to hear from you all. So thank you so much for speaking to us today, and thank you for your time, Isabelle. It's been wonderful to hear about your own cricketing experience and your work with Street Child United, who are such a powerful force in the world today.
Leah, Sam, thank you so much.